Hey everyone, Gary here from Echidna Sewing, and today we're going to take a look at the VMA V-9000A high-speed straight stitch industrial machine. So first, let's take a look at what's included in the box when you get one of these guys. You'll notice here I've got a drawer, and in that drawer I put some of the standard accessories. So you get a couple of screwdrivers with it, of course, and you get a handy little kit of inclusions, which has some snips, some extra bobbins, a tape measure, a needle threader, a Teflon foot is included, and a pair of tweezers in there, and it will also have some needles included. So I'll just pop these back in here into the drawer where they belong. Pop that in there, close that up. Now, you'll also get just a little dust cover to go over the machine when you're not using it. There is a very basic instruction book and a parameter guide as well. So the video is probably going to give you more information than the book's going to give you, but that is included in the box. Now, let's take a look at a few more features. So here we are. This is a high-speed straight stitch industrial machine with auto thread trimming, auto back tacking, auto foot lift, and some really cool features. So let's have a quick look at it. It's a full industrial machine, and it is a fully auto lubricated machine as well. That means it has an oil sump underneath. It is a single needle, as I said. Has a manual stitch length adjustment here, so you just simply turn that dial to change your stitch length. You've got a manual reverse there, but it also has auto reverse down here at your fingertips. Show you that when we start stitching on it. We've got a built-in automatic bobbin winder. We can wind a bobbin while we're actually sewing as well, so it's completely independent of when the machine's running. And pretty easy threading on this. You'll also see we have this little device here, a thread clamping system. That's a great feature. Wait till you see what that does. We've also got a little felt pad here, a silicone pad for lubricating thread when you've got difficult threads or fabrics to deal with. And it is a direct drive. That means there's no big bulky cumbersome motor under the machine. It's a servo motor direct drive right here on the main shaft. Super quiet and generally pretty easy to use. So let's tip the machine back and take a look at what it looks like underneath. So it is an industrial machine, and they are heavy, so they're very solid machines. That's what makes them so smooth and quiet. And tipping the machine back to check the oil sump is something you should do with two hands on the machine itself, and just gently tip it back and let it rest on its stop point. This machine also talks to you. I didn't mention that. So it mentioned then system failure. As soon as we put the machine up, it locks the machine and it can't sew. But here's your oil sump that is feeding oil to the machine. That's your pump there. That pumps oil up all through the top of the machine and through the shafts and out to the bobbin case area. And really no plastic parts, no plastic gears, big solid chunky machine. It's designed to do a lot of work. And if you want the best straight stitch machine, something like this is going to give that to you. Little word, a tip and a warning, this is an industrial machine and it needs to be treated with that respect. Whenever you're putting the machine back down, and quite frankly the only time you'd ever need to put this up is if you're replacing oil or you're cleaning the machine. But when you're putting the machine back down, never have your fingers here. Always keep them well away from there, and two hands on the machine at the top and just gently rock it back forward, and it goes down nice and easy. So we're going to take a look at winding the bobbin. Super simple process. As you can see, I've already got my thread on the spindle here coming up through the eyelet above the spindle. And of course, you can wind a different color while you're sewing your current project. So you could have your next bobbin prepping while you're doing something else. So up through there, it comes down into the little guide right here between the tension disc, out that guide. And then there is a handy little cutter here. So after you've wound the bobbin, you can actually just cut the thread there and it'll hold it in place. And but when we're going to wind a bobbin, I'll already put that on there. I'll take it off and do it again. Just pop your bobbin onto the spindle there. Pull the thread that you've now got running through the little bobbin tension. Wrap it around a few times this way. Now here's a little tip. Once you've done that, then wrap it around this way. And just pull that slack back up. And I'm just going to get my little pair of scissors and I'm just going to trim that thread there. And all I've got to do now is push the bobbin winder in. Now, if I'm just sewing, I can just let it do its thing. If I need to wind a bobbin specifically while I'm not sewing, all I need to do is lift the presser foot manually, leave it in the up position, and take the thread out of the needle eye, and then just start sewing. And you can see the bobbin is now winding and has a little stop on it, so it will automatically stop before it overwinds. Sometimes you don't need to fill a bobbin, so in which case don't. Just stop, release it, take it off the spindle, and then just cut it off there, and we're good to now load the bobbin and get sewing. Now that we've wound the bobbin, let's have a look at loading the bobbin. Standard L-style industrial bobbin case, and we just drop the bobbin in and slip it around into the spring there, and what that means is the bobbin, as you're looking at it as I am, the bobbin will be spinning clockwise. If it's spinning the other way, it's in the wrong way, it's upside down, so change that around. But right now I'm happy with that. Let me just load the bobbin. Always put the bobbin in with the thread hanging out over your thumb and the latch horizontal, like you can see there. Some people like to hold the latch out. I don't. I prefer to put it in, feel for the spindle, and just hear the click. And that's the easiest way to load a bobbin. Okay, let's take a look at threading the machine. Right now it is threaded, but I'm going to re-thread it just to show you how easy it is. And a little tip on all sewing machines, never pull thread backwards through the machine. So I'm going to cut the thread just here, and I'm going to raise my presser foot, and you'll see there is a manual presser foot lift here. And when we raise that, it actually opens the tension. That's called the tension release system. And I'm going to take that thread and I'm just going to pull that through the machine, show you how easy it is now to re-thread. What we've got here, I've got the thread coming up through the little guide up there, which is where it should go. Always make sure you have it in that guide. And then you come through this little post here, go back around like that. And the reason we have that looping around there is it helps to eliminate twists on thread. This is the pre-tension, and this tension also assists in adjusting the trimming length when you're using the trimmers. So it goes into there, and then we make sure we go into the tension down here. Always give the thread a bit of a pull to make sure it is between the tension discs. And then you've got to hook up the check spring under the check spring bar there. And then we go into this little guide, and we'll just cut a nice clean piece of thread there, through the take-up lever, and then behind the little felt pad there. And again, that felt pad can be covered in, or put silicone oil on, and that helps lubricate thread if you've got a difficult thread or fabric combination. And then behind this little gadget here, which is called the clamping system. So the thread goes behind there and then into the little wire there. Nice and easy, there's no complications. And then through a little hole on the actual needle clamp. And then it goes from left to right through the needle. Look at that, first time. And that's it, that's your needle threaded. We've already loaded the bobbin, and you can, of course, if you want to, pull the bobbin thread up by simply turning the wheel towards you. And now the bobbin thread is pulled through to the top. Put that out the back and we're good to go. Electronic machine, so you've got a really simple to follow touch display here. And right now we are set in just standard sewing mode. These buttons here give you automatic back tack at the start and finish of the design, so start and finish. We can do segment sewing, which means we can set it to sew a certain number of stitches and then stop. We've got a slow start option here, so that just slows down the first few stitches to give you not quite as quick a start off. We've got an auto presser foot lifter here, so we can have the foot raise when you stop, like an auto pivot function, and automatically raise at the end of the seam. We have what they call a W stitch or a bar tacking stitch there, and fixed segment sewing, thread clamping, scissors, and needle stopping up or down. So I think the best thing we can do now is have a quick sew on it and show you what these all mean. Okay, I've just got a bit of plain fabric here. We're just going to run a few stitches, show you how easy this is to operate. When you turn it on, it is set to just standard straight stitching. I can tell on the screen here that it's got the needle stopping in the down position. It's got the auto trimmer turned on, and it also has the soft start turned on. So let's do a little stitch down this piece of fabric here. I'm just going to lower that presser foot from when I had it manually lifted before, and touch my pedal, and we will sew down a few stitches And the one thing you'll notice on these is just how quiet they are. Super quiet. And if I heel back on my pedal now, it will trim the thread for me and lift the presser foot. And so there we have a simple seam. Keep myself nice and neat and tidy here. Cut off that starting thread that I had there. Make it look a bit better. Now, if I want to turn on the auto foot lift, these are the buttons here. I love this feature. This is one of the key features. We've got auto foot lift, and listen to what happens when I push the button.
Midway presser foot lifting on.
So that said midway presser foot lifting on. That means what will happen is when I stitch down and stop, it's going to stop with the foot in the up position for me. And now I can auto pivot, and then I can start sewing again. I'm not doing anything. The machine is lifting the foot for me, and I'm using the auto pivot function here. And then when I get to the end, I can just heel back and it will trim the thread for me. Nice and simple. If I touch that button again,
post-thread trimming presser foot lifting on.
That's post-thread trimming. So that means after it's done a trim, the presser foot will stay in the up position. So if I stitch down here and do a trim, the foot will stay up for about 10 seconds while I move and position my fabric. And you can have both those functions switched on.
Post-thread trimming presser foot lifting on.
So that means they're both on, and I kind of like that, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to turn them both off. Now, another nice feature is you're stitching along and you need to go forward a stitch. Just hit this button. And if you hold it down, it will just inch forward at a very slow speed, but it will give you one more stitch. Heel back, and we can trim the thread. This button is not functional on this model. It's not one of the features, but there are other models above this that will have the half stitch button as an option. But generally speaking, stitch forward, and also using that button to get your needle to the up position. So if you just touch it quickly, it will bring the needle up for you. And so they're really cool features. Now, moving along, let's turn on the auto back tacking. So this is auto back tacking on the front or the start of the stitch. Double tacking. So I'm going to do a double tack at the start and finish of the stitch. Let's just come back down here. So when we start sewing now, it will do a back tack at the start, and as soon as I stop and heel back on my pedal, it does a back tack at the end. So I've got an automatic back tacking start and finish. Now, one of the really cool features about these models is you've got the clamping system. And the best way to show you this is if I actually turn that function off for a minute.
Electronic thread clamp on.
So it's currently on.
Electronic thread clamp off.
Now it's off. Now what I've done here is
Sewing.
I've put my thread under my foot here, and if I start stitching now, you'll see that I've got a tail there, quite a long tail. And if I do that again, I'm going to turn my auto back tacking off for a while. We don't need that on. So I'll do it again, and you'll see that I've got these tails. Now that means you've got to go to the end of the garment or whatever you're doing and then trim all those tails off. If I turn my clamping system back on,
Electronic thread clamp on.
so very easy. Same deal here, watch what happens. No tail. The tail will get sewn into the stitch. It doesn't disappear, it goes to the back of the stitching. But that's much better than having to go through and trim all those tail lengths at the end of whatever process you're doing. So really, really simple to use. This demonstration is more about some of the features, not necessarily digging too deep into it. Another cool feature is that you've got what we call the W stitch.
W-sewing.
And what that means is it's going to do like a bar tack or a reinforcing stitch. When I hit my pedal, it automatically sews that little bar tack, and I can change that to be more stitches, less stitches, but it's a great way at the end of your garment to quickly go around and reinforce any stress points on whatever it is you're producing, and it does it all automatically for you. So I'll turn that back off. If you're needing to do your manual reverse, we'll go back into free sewing now. I've got a reverse lever on the side here, just below the stitch length adjustment, which incidentally is really easy to adjust. So you just release the pressure on the feed mechanisms, push this little button in and turn this dial. Now that's come down to about a stitch length of 3, and it goes right down to 0. Of course, you'll never go down to 0, there's no need to. If I go down to 1, it's really tiny. We'll go to 2 and you'll see that's a pretty small stitch. And if we go back up to say 3.5, 4, that's kind of getting to an average stitch length there. So reversing is just a case of hitting that button, or you've got the soft touch reverse here. So it means you don't have to leave the work area to get to the reverse or to do a reverse stitch. On the side under here, there's a button for the lights. Now you might not notice this, but it may not come up on camera, but there are 3 settings for the LED light. 1, 2, 3 different settings. So that's the brightest light. And they're all LEDs, so the globe's never going to blow on you. You won't be replacing light bulbs like we have done for so many years in the past. Tension adjustment is just here, nice and easy to use. All machines have tension adjustment. That's part of sewing, understanding what that actually means. But you know, as long as you've got using good quality thread. And speaking of thread, you can sew right up to about a 70 tex thread on these, which is pretty heavy. Just got to make sure you put the right needle in place there. Machine runs up to 4,000 stitches per minute, and to change the speed, all you've got to do, I'll just get out of there. There we go. In fact, it runs up to 4,200, yeah. If you don't like that speed, you can just slow it down to whatever you want. So if you felt 2,500 stitches per minute was better for you, that's also okay. And you'll see it's a lot slower than it was at 4,000. Now, sometimes you'll do jobs where you really don't want to go too fast at all. And instead of having to control that on your foot control, you can slow the speed right down. I think it's to 200 stitches per minute. And no matter how hard I push that pedal, that's as fast as it's going to go. So sometimes that's a really good advantage. Now we'll just speed that up to say, back up to 2,000, which is a comfortable speed for most people. But you can also make it a lot faster if you wish. Being an industrial machine, it's really powerful. As I said, it's got the servo motor, which means the needle penetration power is massive. So you can sew through pretty much anything, as long as you're using the right needle. Of course, that's very important. Don't try and sew 10 layers of denim with a size 70 or 65 needle. That's not a good idea. A couple of other things worth knowing is that there is an oil sight gauge, so you can always tell that your oil's pumping correctly, and that's right there. Now, a little tip is when you wind a bobbin, and if you're winding it while you're not sewing, and in other words, like I just did previously, try and wind it at full speed. That way you get the oil circulating beautifully through the machine, and you will see the oil pumping up through this window, which is a good indication that everything's going superbly. Another important feature on any machine is foot pressure adjustment, and this one is really cool because undo that little knob there and you can adjust this adjustment knob up and down to give you infinite control on the amount of pressure on the presser foot, and that's important for different types of fabrics. That's pretty much about it. As I said, it's got segment sewing, so you can set it to sew multiple segments. Maybe you're putting on a badge or something, you've got 100 little patches to apply and they're all the same stitch lengths. You've got those functions there. Yeah, that's pretty much about all I can tell you at the moment, other than it's just a beautiful sewing machine to sew on. And what's more, there's so many different presser feet available for a standard high shank industrial machine like this. From roller feet to all types of zipper feet, to gathering feet, to specialty cording and piping feet. That's just incredible, and we carry a huge range of those. So anyway, there you go. That's the V-9000A. Now, you might notice this one actually also has a G on the end of it. This is the grey version. So we have both a grey tone, so this is grey here, and we also have the standard one, which is the typical or the standard red VMA colour. So choose the colour that suits you, and off you go. So please have a look at it, and if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to get in touch with us anytime. And until next time, happy sewing.